the call to the honourable member for Durack.
Thank you. My question is to the Prime Minister. In August 2021, the now Prime Minister promised Labor government would, as a matter of priority, establish a Makarrata Commission to develop a framework for federal treaty making because, quote, the Uluru Statement called for a national process of treaty and, quote, there can be no reconciliation without treaty. Does the Prime Minister remain committed to a national treaty as called for in the Uluru Statement from the heart?
The call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for her question. And of course, the issue of treaty making has been something that's been around for a long period of time. Since the Burunga Statement was one of the things that was mentioned on the weekend at Gama, and of course Bob Hawke gave a commitment to advance treaty making. Now, since then, there has been various issues done. One of those, of course, is in Western Australia. Probably the most significant one is the agreement done between Premier Barnett and the Noongar people that covered south-western Australia. But since then as well, at the moment, in Queensland, there's a process where the LNP and the ALP government have, to quote the leader of the Queensland LNP, I rise to support the Path to Treaty Bill 2023 that passed Parliament there in May. In Victoria, there's also a process, and there the leader of the Victorian National Party, Peter Walsh, said this: the Liberals and Nationals are committed to advancing the treaty process in Victoria. In Tasmania, there's a process, and Jeremy Rockcliffe, the Liberal Premier, said this: I am also deeply committed to delivering a pathway to treaty and truth-telling. And of course, people outside the process as well. Warren Mundine, former Liberal candidate. Can't be more.
Prime Minister will pause. The order. The members on my left, the member for Herbert. The Leader of the Opposition on point of order.
Mr Speaker, the question couldn't have been any clearer. Is it possible for this Prime Minister to answer just one question with a straight answer? Does the Prime Minister remain committed to a national treaty? Can you answer a question honestly?
Under the standing orders, the answer must be relevant to the question. The Prime Minister, as I'm listening, is talking about treaty process. I hadn't finished what I was about to say, but I'll listen to the Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr Speaker, I seek clarification from you as to whether your ruling is that the Prime Minister is in order and that his answer is relevant to the question asked.
Well, as I was explaining to the Leader of the Opposition before he took another point of order, the Prime Minister was asked about the Makarrata and does he remain committed to treaty, as called in the Uluru Statement. Under the standing orders, he is talking about treaty. He may be talking about another form of treaty. Let me finish. At the moment, I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to his answer to make sure he is being relevant to the question. He's halfway through his answer, and I'll ask him to return to the question to make sure he is being relevant.
Absolutely, Mr Speaker, because we know that in this vast island continent that we have the great privilege of sharing with the oldest continuous culture on earth. There are 400 Indigenous nations around this country. And what we have seen is that where things work the best is when people come together. The concept of Makarrata is coming together. It's a Yolngu word, coming together after conflict. And that is precisely what has occurred with native title. It's what's occurred with the Mabo decision. It's what's occurred with all of that.
The Deputy Leader of the Opposition will not interject.
Indeed, Warren Mundine. Oh.
Order. I'll hear from the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, I ask that you rule on whether the Prime Minister is in order and whether he is relevant to the question asked. The question is, does the Prime Minister remain committed to a national treaty? Not some other treaty, the national treaty. Does the Prime Minister remain committed to it? And I ask that you rule on this matter.
I'll hear from the Leader of the House.
Just to the point of order, in the first instance, points of order on relevance can only be raised once. can only be raised once.
Order.
And if the earlier point of order was on anything else, it was out of order, because that's clearly the issue that was seeking to be raised. And secondly, the standing orders require that the answer is relevant to those terms in the question, and all the terms that the Leader of the Opposition has just referred to are being referred to in the answer, all of them.
I want to respond to the Leader of the Opposition. Under the standing orders, it clearly states that answers have to be directly relevant. That is not the same as a direct answer. That is not in the standing orders. I know that may be frustrating for members opposite, but that is the standing orders. If you wish to change that, the standing orders will have to change. But as they stand now, the Prime Minister is talking about the subject matter, so he is being relevant, and he has the call.
Much, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Prime Minister will be heard in silence for the remainder of the answer.
In May 2017, Warren Mundine said this about the government of which this member was there. I've always supported treaties between governments and Indigenous First Nations. I propose the government offer each First Nation a treaty recognising them as traditional owners of their land and sea and concluding any native title claims over those areas. That was Warren Mundine talking about the advice he gave to the former coalition government.
We'll hear from the member for Page, seeking leave.
Speaker, I thank the Prime Minister for earlier for tabling page 1 of the document Uluru Statement from the Heart. I seek leave to table the full 26-page document Uluru Statement from the Heart.
Order. Members on my right. The member for Page has sought leave. Is leave granted?
Leave's not granted.